Welcome back, fellow seekers of truth, to The Unseen Hand. Today, we're diving into one of the most explosive and controversial conspiracy theories of the 20th century. Prepare yourselves for a roller coaster ride through a dark world of political intrigue, covert operations, and devastating consequences. Did Ronald Reagan and the U.S. government authorize the distribution of drugs in the black community to finance a war in South America? Let's find out. The 1980s, a decade marked by big hair, neon colors, and the escalation of the war on drugs, which for some was a war against the black community. It was also a time of mounting tension between the United States and the Soviet Union as the Cold War raged on. Caught in the middle of this global power struggle were the small, war-torn nations of Central and South America, where communist and anti-communist forces vied for control. Enter the United States, eager to prevent the spread of communism in its backyard. Under the leadership of President Ronald Reagan and George Bush, the director of the CIA, the U.S. became deeply involved in the conflicts in Nicaragua and El Salvador, providing financial and military support to anti-communist forces known as the Contras. But there was a catch. In 1984, Congress passed the Boland Amendment, which restricted the U.S. government's ability to fund the Contras directly. And this, dear viewers, is where our conspiracy begins. With their hands tied by the Boland Amendment, the Reagan administration faced a dilemma. How could they continue to support the Contras without violating the law? According to some, the answer was simple: by using an intricate and clandestine network to funnel money and weapons to their allies, funded by the sale of drugs within the United States. To be more precisely, the sale of drugs in the black community. In 1996, investigative journalist Gary Webb published a series of articles in the San Jose Mercury News, which would later be compiled into the book Dark Alliance. Webb's explosive allegations sent shockwaves through the American public, as he claimed that the CIA had been complicit in the importation of crack cocaine into the United States, specifically targeting African American communities in Los Angeles. The profits from these drug sales, Webb alleged, were then funneled back to the Contras in Nicaragua, effectively bypassing the restrictions imposed by the Boland Amendment. The implications of these allegations were staggering. If true, they suggested that the U.S. government was not only involved in the illegal drug trade but was actively contributing to the devastation of already marginalized black communities. The idea that the very government responsible for waging the war on drugs might also be playing a role in perpetuating the crisis was nothing short of scandalous. But what evidence did Webb and other journalists uncover to support these claims? Let's take a closer look at the key players and events that form the basis of this conspiracy theory. At the center of the allegations is Oscar Danilo Blandon, a Nicaraguan national who immigrated to the United States in the 1970s. Blandon, a former member of the ruling Somoza government, became involved with the Contras after the Sandinistas took power in Nicaragua. In the 1980s, Blandon established himself as one of the largest drug dealers in Los Angeles, importing vast quantities of cocaine from Colombia and distributing it through a network of local dealers, including the notorious Freeway Ricky Ross. Blandon's connections to the Contras are well documented. He has admitted in court that he used the proceeds from his drug sales to support the anti-communist guerrillas. He also enjoyed the protection of influential figures within the Contra movement, such as Enrique Bermudez, a former colonel in the Nicaraguan National Guard and a key CIA contact. Webb's investigation also uncovered evidence of connections between Blandon and the U.S. government. Blandon testified that he had met with CIA agents on several occasions and had been instructed to raise money for the Contras by any means necessary. Furthermore, Blandon's operation appeared to have been given a free pass by U.S. law enforcement, as several investigations into his activities were inexplicably dropped or derailed. But perhaps the most damning evidence came from the testimony of Celerino Castillo, a former D agent who served in Central America during the 1980s. Castillo claimed that he had discovered a link between the drug trade and the Contras, with cocaine being transported to the United States on military planes, often under the cover of humanitarian aid missions. Castillo's attempts to bring this information to light were allegedly met with resistance and even threats from his superiors. Taken together, these revelations paint a chilling picture of a government willing to go to great lengths to achieve its geopolitical objectives, even if it meant participating in illegal activities and devastating the lives of its own citizens. The publication of Webb's Dark Alliance series and subsequent investigations by other journalists ignited a firestorm firestorm of controversy. The American public was outraged by the allegations, leading to calls for further investigation and accountability. In response to the outcry, the CIA and the Department of Justice launched their own investigations into the matter. Both agencies released reports that acknowledged some connections between the Contras and drug traffickers, but ultimately concluded that there was no evidence of direct CIA involvement in the drug trade or a deliberate effort to target African American communities. Critics of these reports argue that they were little more than whitewashes, designed to protect the reputations of the agencies involved and deflect attention away from the true extent of the government's complicity in the drug trade. Tragically, Gary Webb's career and personal life suffered as a result of his explosive reporting. He was discredited by many mainstream media outlets, and his employer, the San Jose Mercury News, eventually distanced itself from his work. In 2004, Webb was found dead from 2 gunshot wounds to the head in what was ruled a suicide. His death only added to the air of mystery and controversy surrounding the story. So, did the Reagan administration and the U.S. government knowingly participate in the drug trade to fund their war in South America? While the official investigations concluded that there was no direct evidence of such a conspiracy, many questions remain unanswered. What is clear is that the allegations exposed a tangled web of corruption, covert operations, and international intrigue that has left a lasting impact on American society. The legacy of the war on drugs, the devastation of inner-city communities, and the lingering distrust of government institutions can all be traced, at least in part, to the events that unfolded during this dark chapter in American history. As always, dear viewers, we encourage you to question the official narrative, seek out the truth, and make up your own minds. That's all for today's episode of The Unseen Hand. If you're hungry for more tales of conspiracy, deception, and the hidden forces that shape our world, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And there you have it, a deep dive into the controversial theory that the Reagan administration and the U.S. government were involved in the drug trade to fund their war efforts in South America. With the evidence presented and the many unanswered questions, it's up to you to decide where you stand on this complex and contentious issue. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the dark corners of history, where the lines between fact and fiction are often blurred. Keep tuning into The Unseen Hand, where we'll continue to explore unsolved crimes, government cover-ups, true crime, conspiracy theories, and bizarre historical events that have shaped our world. Remember, knowledge is power, and the truth is often stranger than fiction. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay connected with The Unseen Hand. Until next time, fellow truth seekers.